Hey everyone, welcome back to another video response. This time it's to Shock 16. This is systems and the first games you played on them and your thoughts. Now, I just grabbed what was immediately available. I might try to edit this in chronological order, but it's so jumbled right now that probably won't happen. So it'll just be out of order and it'll be filmed over different days because of the number of systems and how I can get to them. I don't think I can get to all of them physically, so I might just have to show up a game. But I have some boxes and consoles here, so let's get started. The first would be the Sega Master System. I did not own one of these growing up, but I did play a friend's, and he had, I think it's called Gangster Town. I wasn't really impressed with it. I remember thinking it looked neat because the graphics were clearly better than what I had for the Nintendo. But gameplay-wise, it didn't really strike me as anything unique. When I got my Master System years and years later, I guess it'd be relatively recently in comparison, I played Hang On, and I thought it looked great. I had it hooked up to a CRT, controlled really, really well. Despite the controller being a little stiff, the game was very responsive. And yeah, I thought it looked really good, ran smooth. So that was my first go on the Sega Master System and the first game I played when I owned one. Next up, I'll go through the loose consoles first. This is my original NES. Oh, Guardian Legend is in there. Now, we did rent one of these before we bought one. My parents had an Atari, and they actually liked video games around the time the NES came out. At its release is when they kind of stopped, but I was really sick, and they rented one, I guess, to try to cheer me up, but I don't think I was actually able to play it. I eventually did when I got one, of course, but I want to say they rented Top Gun, and I remember them trying to land the jet and just randomly falling asleep while they were doing it. But when I finally got to play it, it was with Mario and Duck Hunt, and that is a great combination to have for a first go. Mario being, a classic. And Duck Hunt was actually the first light gun game I had played. There were no light gun games in my arcade, and I hadn't seen my friend with his Master System. I actually met him after I got my NES. So yeah, I didn't really have an opportunity to see a light gun game. And I thought Duck Hunt was an absolute blast. My mom's youngest sister was pretty young, early 20s at the time, and when she came over with her husband, that was his favorite thing, was to play Duck Hunt. So he played Duck Hunt with me, my brother, and cousins. And that's a pretty good memory. He would eventually cheat by running up to the TV and shooting it and thinking it was hilarious, but he's still a dick. Yeah, the NES, I had really great first impressions of it. And that's just lasted ever since. Next is less positive, the Atari Jaguar. I bought this back in 2000, I guess it was 8, and it was about, I want to say $25 to $35, which is really surprising now, but that was about the going rate then. And it came with, I think, 5 games, one of which was Kasumi Ninja. Well, because of interactive entertainment, I had seen Kasumi Ninja in action, and I really wanted to try it. So that was the first thing I threw in, and my console has a problem where you have to tilt the cartridge forward to make connections. So after finagling and finally getting it to work, Kasumi Ninja loads up. There's digitized characters. I'm thinking this is going to be a great nostalgic trip to that era. And I really did not like that game. Controls are really uncomfortable. You can only play as these 2 very similar characters first. You have to unlock the rest. Yeah, at the time, it looked pretty good given there were other digitized fighters like Mortal Kombat. But man, when I played it, yeah, even the nostalgic factor couldn't overpower just the uncomfortable, stiff controls, lack of characters, slow progression, and just boring moveset and questionable hit detection. So that was my first, and that's pretty much the Atari Jaguar in a nutshell for me. I do have quite a few good games for it, but the first 5 games I played were not impressive. Next up is, ugh, God, these older ones are heavy. This is 360. My original 360 broke. I actually had several break on me. This is, I want to say, an arcade version. Yeah, this is an arcade version that I wanted HDMI out, and after my original one had broke for the third or fourth time, uh, I just took it in, instead of sending it back to Microsoft, took it to GameStop with a bunch of games, and I was able to get this one, carried over my old hard drive, and that's what this is. And if you don't recall, you actually had to have this for wireless play. But my first 360 game was Project Gotham Racing 3, and that was a perfect way to start the system. That series always looked good, but 3 was just, it still looks good. The controls are great. The Kudo system is a lot of fun, very addictive, where you get extra points and combo modifiers for how stylish your driving is. Ran really fast. I remember my friend, he had one of the first big TVs I'd seen. Of course, this was back before everyone had an HD TV. He had a giant floor model with like 45-inch screen. Putting that game into the behind the dash kind of first person view, we both just sat there with it paused looking at it because it just, oh, it looked great. Kind of the difference between when I played Mario Kart and Uniracer for the Super Nintendo, and a few days later I got Ridge Racer for the PlayStation. That night and day difference where, the road actually looked like a real road, then that's the kind of leap I felt when I played Project Gotham Racing 3. I had a few more 360 launch titles like Cameo, which, I mean, looking back, Cameo is okay, but really wasn't what I was wanting at the time. And there was one other one we played. Oh man, King Kong, I think, which that was an okay game too. It didn't look that much better than the original Xbox version, though. It just looked like it had this coat of like oil on it. Everything was really shiny. But Project Gotham Racing 3 was, I can't imagine a better way to start out with the 360's lifespan than that. Next up, I'll go with this one. PlayStation 2, an inauspicious start. I had MDK2. I got that in before I got the system. So I went to Walmart, put down every cent I had to get this, got back, and I don't think this actually came with a demo disc. And so MDK2 was the only game I had for a while. And that's, MDK and MDK2 are fun games, but when that's all you have to play, yeah, it gets old fast, and a lot of the games were still rented out because people were clamoring for stuff to play. So, and that kind of, as with the Jaguar, that was about how I felt with the PlayStation 2 for a while. The first few games I played didn't really impress me. Really a slow start for me. It's when Konami kind of picked up speed with it, and we got Gradius 5, Contra Shattered Soldier, Silent Hill 3. Those were like the big 3 for me that I was really into. I'm trying to think of what the earlier games were. Let's see. The back of the box shows a bunch of sports games. Fantavision, Smuggler's Run, and Summoner. I just got Summoner, actually. But yeah, that's what we were looking at here. NFL Game Day 2001, Final Four 2001, Cool Border 2001, Fantavision, Smuggler's Run. I'm not into sports games, and I think I played Smuggler's Run, and it was all right. But yeah, nothing really impressed me as the PlayStation 1 did or the 360 did. Obviously, it grew on me. I have a really nice PS2 collection, and as the library expanded, it just exploded to a lot of great stuff. But yeah, the MDK2 was a good game, but not an impressive first game to play. But that's just kind of how the situation fell, or I should say, played out. But next up, to stick with the PlayStation, PSP. I got this at launch. I was in college at the time. I had an early morning class, and I had been trading things in slowly at GameStop for about a year towards it, and I had it paid off. I actually got Ridge Racer in beforehand, and Ridge Racer, and I had one other game, but it was really Ridge Racer that I wanted to play. So go to GameStop. The minute it opens, first one to buy one, get home, and yeah, this really, as Ridge Racer on the PlayStation 1 impressed me, Ridge Racer on this impressed me. I'll say it still looks good, runs good, fun to play. Shortly after this, the Ridge Racer series kind of lost me, but when I played it on here, I really thought they were getting back into the groove. And yeah, that was again a great way to start the system. Perfect for a handheld, the way it was designed, where you could just play a race, stop, or with really the first time I was experiencing it, where you could just flick the power button and it'd go into a standby mode, so you could pick the game up later. And I like the PSP a lot. I do find it uncomfortable to play, like with the PSP Go, but it's got a great game selection. The UMD was an unfortunate choice to go with. I know a lot of people jailbreak theirs for emulation, and I tried that, but just because I don't find it that comfortable, I never really continued with that. But game-wise, oh, it's got a really good selection. RPGs, fighters. Really enjoying the PSP Go, having it docked with a DualShock. But for PSP, first Ridge Racer, knocked it out of the park. And finally, for this set that I have here, let me dust it off. The Nintendo GameCube. This is the last console I got as a gift, and I really wasn't going to ask for it. I was saving up for it, actually. My parents were wanting what I wanted for Christmas, and I really didn't have any idea of what to ask for, and I was working at the time, so I pretty much bought whatever I wanted. I think they offered to cover some car insurance, give me some candy, and one of them saw this on, I think, CNN or something. They were talking about it. And they said, "Oh, do you want the new Nintendo?" I said, I'm saving for it. Like, it's a perfect gift. We'll all chip in. And boom, that's what it was. And I played Rogue Squadron. I had heard so much about it. And for some reason, it's over here and it got wavy, like water damaged, even though no water's damaged it. I've had that a few games that happened. Anyway, yeah, that game, although in retrospect, it's not that involved. It doesn't play great. Like I guess you'd call it very superficial, but man, it looks good. Like at the time, I couldn't believe this little console was cranking that out. I was a huge fan of X-Wing and TIE Fighter. I still play them on PC, and of course, this wasn't as in depth as that. But for like arcade style variation of it, and for looks, the looks and sound were just immersive. It reminded me when I first played Dark Forces, and I felt like I was in a Star Wars universe or movie. That's how I felt with Rogue Squadron. And yeah, the outer space levels were great. I mean, it controls well, but yeah, there's just not a lot of layers to it. It's very basic, but still a great way to start the system. I played Luigi's Mansion next. I rented it. At the time, people were kind of complaining that it was simple, and I felt that, but I got into a really good rhythm of it. I liked the sucking up ghosts and all that. But Rogue, I forgot, was it Rogue Squadron 2? Something like that? It was the first one. The third one went off the rails. I wasn't a fan, but part 2, really good start for the GameCube. And I would say visually, not just for the time, but now, it still looks good. So that's it for this section. I'll either leave this in or I'll just cut to the next. But I'm going to try to put all these together and not be too long about it. Thanks for watching.